Thomas Reed was a man of routine. Every day was the same. Wake up, shower, coffee, work. He wore gray suits. He worked in a gray office. His life felt gray. Thomas was a corporate lawyer. He was successful. He was also deeply unhappy. He felt empty. He felt alone. He had no time for anything else, or so he told himself. He wasn't interested in relationships. He didn't understand people who needed others. He certainly didn't understand people who loved pets. Animals seemed messy and inconvenient. He preferred his life orderly and controlled. Thomas felt nothing for animals. He had grown up in a home without pets. His parents had believed pets were too much responsibility. As an adult, Thomas avoided animals whenever possible. He never went to parks. He never visited friends with pets. He lived in a carefully curated world devoid of the chaos and unpredictability that animals, especially dogs, represented. One night, everything changed. It was a night like any other. The city was alive with the sounds of sirens and traffic. A cold, relentless rain pounded the pavement. Thomas was walking home from work. He was lost in his thoughts, his mind replaying the day's legal battles. As he hurried along the slick, rain-washed streets, he noticed a small, huddled shape under a park bench. He paused, his gaze drawn to the sight. It was a dog, a small, nondescript thing with matted fur. It was shivering, its bony body no bigger than a loaf of bread. The dog looked up at Thomas with large, soulful eyes. Fear and hope battled in their depths. Thomas felt a pang of something unfamiliar. He couldn't place it. It was certainly not sympathy. He told himself it was irritation. He didn't need this. He had things to do, places to be. He considered walking on. After all, it wasn't his problem. But something held him there, the dog's eyes perhaps, or the sheer misery of the creature's situation. He hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. He wouldn't take the dog home. He couldn't possibly do that. But he could at least make sure it wasn't sick or injured. He approached cautiously, his expensive leather shoes squelching on the wet pavement. The dog cowered, but didn't run. It whined softly, a sound that tugged at something deep inside Thomas, something he hadn't realized was there. He reached out a hand, his touch hesitant at first, then bolder as he examined the dog. It was thin, ribs showing through its wet fur, but it didn't seem injured. In that moment, as the rain poured down around them, Thomas made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He couldn't leave the dog. He couldn't explain it. This sudden urge to protect this small, helpless creature. He took off his suit jacket, wrapped it around the shivering dog, and carried it home. The next morning, Thomas woke with a start. He had a dog in his apartment. What had he been thinking? He looked at the dog curled up at the foot of his bed. It was sleeping soundly. Thomas couldn't help but smile. He decided to call the dog Charlie. It seemed like a good, solid name for a dog that had already weathered its share of storms. Life with Charlie was far from Thomas's carefully ordered existence. There were muddy paw prints on the pristine hardwood floor of his apartment. There were walks in the park that Thomas had previously avoided. There were even trips to the pet store, a place Thomas had never imagined himself setting foot in. But to Thomas's surprise, he found himself enjoying these changes. He enjoyed the walks, the feel of the crisp morning air on his face, and the sight of Charlie running with pure joy. He enjoyed the quiet evening spent with Charlie curled up at his feet. He even enjoyed the chaos that Charlie brought to his once sterile apartment. It was as if Charlie had opened a window in Thomas's soul, letting in light and air and the simple joys of life that he had forgotten existed. As the days turned into weeks, Thomas felt himself changing. He was less focused on work, less concerned with material things. He started volunteering at a local animal shelter, his heart breaking for the countless animals that, like Charlie, had been abandoned and forgotten. He found himself smiling more, laughing more, and connecting with people in a way he never had before. He learned that happiness wasn't about success or wealth or climbing the corporate ladder. It was about love, compassion, and connection. He learned that the simplest acts of kindness, like rescuing a stray dog on a rainy night, could have the most profound impact on a life. Charlie, in his own way, taught Thomas about unconditional love. No matter what kind of day Thomas had, no matter how stressed or preoccupied he was, Charlie greeted him with the same wagging tail and adoring eyes. Charlie didn't care about Thomas's job title or his bank balance. He loved Thomas for who he was, flaws and all. And in loving Charlie, Thomas learned to love himself a little more too. He learned that it was okay to let go of control, to embrace the chaos, to find joy in the simple things. He learned that the greatest gift he could give himself was the gift of compassion, both for others and for himself. Thomas Reed, the man in the gray suit, was gone. In his place was a man who found joy in muddy paw prints and wet dog kisses. A man who had learned that the greatest adventure in life wasn't climbing the corporate ladder, but opening his heart to the love and companionship of a stray dog. Charlie had saved Thomas, not from the rain, but from a life half-lived, a life devoid of true meaning and connection. He had reminded Thomas that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can lead us to the greatest love and fulfillment we could ever imagine. Like and subscribe for more stories like this.